All
know.
right. All right. What's up, everybody? It's Pikel from the standing desk, and this is League of Items. We're doing some rankings talk, specifically with the e-goat himself, Billy. Billy, how's it going?
What's going on?
Doing
Pretty good, man.
fine.
How you doing?
We were just discussing last night. I had some EDG, but I still lost my qualifier. Unlucky. So let's just get right into it. So you were about to tell us something about FPX. So what were you going in with?
Um, yeah, FPX, as some people might have noticed, has been sinking like a stone in the ego rankings over the last 2 weeks or so. A couple losses combined with a couple narrow wins over mediocre competition has hurt them. My sort of more general DFS win loss model or win loss model that I use for my DFS stuff has like a longer look back period than the ego stuff, which is trying to capture more of this like momentum, and sort of intentionally have a little bit more recency bias. Was a lot higher on FPX. So the ego rankings actually going into last night had OMG above FPX, by just
Wow.
a small margin. Whereas my other model had FPX as like a 60 plus% favorite. And the same thing happened on the EDG Vici game, where the ego rankings had, I think EDG is a slight favorite. My model preferred Vici, or maybe vice versa. So I thought last night was a really exciting slate. For a two gamer, it felt like there were a lot of options, especially with some higher scoring teams. And I know you mentioned you were
Yeah.
pretty excited about it too. So
Yeah. I
definitely agree with
think
that.
that's one of the reasons why I've been real happy putting together my rankings every week is because I had EDG and Vici Gaming pretty close in the last ranking. So first I had Vici Gaming below. Okay, so I can actually look it over here. So Vici Gaming and EDG are right next to each other now after the result from today. So initially I had Vici Gaming at 23, EDG at 17 because EDG had more like long-term success and they had the more talent, and like the more recognizable names. But as time went on and VG Gaming continued to compete really well against the top teams, I started really appreciating that. And after their roster change when they brought in Zika, I figured like now is the time that they're going to be a better team. And we've kind of seen that even in their match today against EDG. Like I think the easy thing to do is like think to yourself, oh well, Vici Gaming just lost to EDG, they can't be better than them. But I mean, when you have a roster that's been together for what, like 2 weeks against a team that's been around, where the core's been around for like over a year, it just doesn't seem like a fair fight. So I do think that Vici Gaming's long-term upside is very similar to EDG, if not higher, because of Zika. Zika's like 17 or something. I think the only reason he didn't play in the earlier split was because of like age. He might not have been allowed to play. Uh,
I I've also noticed he seems like I have no idea how like
yeah,
large these humans are, like because
yeah,
but like he's so much taller and
yeah.
bigger than
Did you
everybody
see
else on
Rat?
stage whenever they come out that it's like noticeable.
Oh my
No,
god,
I didn't see that. I didn't watch that
Rat
night.
was like Rat had to be half a foot taller than everybody that he was standing by. It was so funny. Um,
And then the other one they called, I think Rookie was
yeah,
like Rookie was so small. Like he looked like he was like like
yeah.
a good like four or
I
five
think that's
inches shorter
partially
than
because I
everybody.
think the Shy is tall, and I think that Ning is tall.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Ning was huge. That surprised me. In some way, like I feel like I don't know, like this is stupid, but I think that like the players should like be like in it, like there should be proportionality in the size of the human being and the characters that they play. And so you get like these
yeah,
guys that like play tanks and they're
yeah.
small, and I'm like, no,
That's
that doesn't
true.
like compute
Like
in my
if
head.
you're under 5'7", you're only allowed to play Yordle characters. That'd be funny. Uh, so so
Exactly.
let's get into the rankings. Is there a league you want to start in first? I guess probably start in the worst league, North America.
Yeah, why not? No one knows what's going on there these days, so we might as well just
Actually,
throw out the
before we
dive right into the
start, so
chaos.
just to give some context to people, we I was asking you about Vegas stuff, so maybe we should do like a quick primer on the Vegas stuff that we're probably going to focus on today?
Yeah, we can do that. So I guess just to give a perspective on the season as a whole. So we were talking about sort of, I've been posting in my weekly thread how Ego just does, straight up
Yep.
picking winners and losers. The Vegas, sort of looking at how it does based on how big of or of a favorite or underdog a team is. Obviously, provides some extra context. So on the summer split as a whole, I think the Ego has done a really good job on heavy favorites and slight dogs, and not as well on slight favorites and heavy dogs. So win rate of about 75% on favorites of 150 or better, and a win rate over 50% when picking underdogs that are
Mm-hmm.
plus 200 or less. But then when you move to favorites of 150 or less, that win percentage drops from about 75% down to 50%. And when you move from underdogs less than 200 to underdogs over 200, you go from a 51, 52% win percentage down to 2 and 9, so 18%. I think that that's sort of expected, right? You can like the couple of wins can
Yeah.
really make back
Mm-hmm.
money for you pretty fast there. So I don't think that's fully unexpected. And similarly with the heavy favorites, you need to win a lot of those games just to keep your head above water. But that's sort of my high level,
Yeah.
uh, you know,
So a plus
take
200
on
dog,
what it's doing at
that's
this point.
roughly 33%. So you would want to hit 33% to break even, I think. And it's always tough. It's always tough making that call at a plus 200. But that's the kind of spot where at least we have the chance to think about it more in depth. If a stat is pointing it out.
And especially for me, where I'm not, I'll maybe make a small bet here and there, but I'm mainly using this as a lens
Yeah.
through which to view my DFS picks. And there it's and especially for me who's a MME player, it comes down to my exposures to these different teams. And when I see my model
Yeah.
flashing red on a heavy favorite, it just mean I reduce my exposure as
Fading.
opposed to I'm gonna go and put a big large
Yeah.
chunk on the
So I
underdog to win.
guess the other thing, do you keep track of your parlay odds for the stacks that you're throwing in? Like if you
Um,
let's say last night you ran
I
Vici
do.
Gaming with FPX, like that lineup would have the parlay odds of whatever those two money lines were. So it'd be like a slight favorite and a heavy favorite, and then you could look at it as like, if I think that this hits the same amount of time as the sportsbook does, then the maximum exposure of Fun Plus Phoenix plus Vici Gaming that I should have is 60%.
I do not. Like I have definitely think that's worthwhile, and I know I've seen watched some of your streams going through like
Yeah.
pre slate stuff doing that, and I think there's value in it. I think the way I use Fantasy Cruncher to build my lineups, and I do my exposures on a I do my exposure caps on a player by player
Yeah.
basis instead of a team by team basis, which I think at the end of the day, if you're sort of calibrating it, you can get to the
Yeah.
roughly the same place. So I think that for me, I think a lot of that stuff gets implied into the
Sure.
ownership odds, and so I just focus on that and sort of look at try to weight plus or minus over projected ownership versus sort of looking at Vegas to imply that. I don't know which one's more accurate, but I think it's
Yeah.
sort of same
Yeah.
idea, right?
Okay, so let's get into the LCS. So, were there any notable games or teams you wanted to talk about, or do you just want to give me your rankings and then we'll do it that way?
Um, yeah, I haven't looked ahead, so I don't really know if there's anything interesting in
The
terms of
suspense
like
must be
upcoming
killing you.
games here. Yeah, it's killing me. So I'll just run through. So I have JDG has moved into the top
Wait, are we
spot
are we are we starting in A League or are we
with
starting in China?
I'm sorry.
There you go.
LCS. Yeah, sorry, I was on the wrong tab there. So yeah, C9 still up top. Although down a little bit in terms of their lead
Yeah.
over second. Team Liquid into the second slot by a decent margin, followed by 100 Thieves, FlyQuest fourth, TSM fifth, Golden Guardian sixth, CLG seventh, Mortals eighth, Evil Genius is ninth, and Dignitas in the basement.
Interesting.
Um, yeah, so again, I think we talked a little bit about Evil Geniuses last week. We continue to see them sort of lag behind here. But I think, and again, 100 Thieves is probably higher than the consensus, largely on the back of their win
Yeah.
over C9. But I think other than that, probably lines up with sort of the general consensus on
Yeah.
where the LCS is at, to the
Yeah.
extent that anybody
I
knows
think
anything.
that it's interesting because the ego, like, kind of, I wouldn't say predicted, it's not the right word, but ego anticipated like the public loving 100 Thieves this week. I didn't look at the ownership on 100 Thieves from over the weekend. Did you notice if they were like abnormally high or anything? I think they had tough matchups, so it wasn't like it wasn't the week to kind of test out that theory. I don't think, but yeah, 100.
I, th- I I think you're right. And ego. So again, this is one where my my DFS model with the longer look back period is less
Mm-hmm.
high on 100 Thieves, because it's just more to balance out sort of the recent win streak. And I'm pulling up the ownership numbers from the slates over the weekend, but I know I ended up being
Yeah,
underweight on them on both slates,
good thing. Yeah.
which ended up being
Yeah. So the
to my
question,
advantage. Yeah.
one of the questions that we discussed on Twitter at one point was like, for Vegas, I forgot if you told me or not. Is there a way that you use your ranking to project a money line, like an implied money line based on ego? Like, have you tried to see
Um.
that yet?
So I do that. So the way that my other model that I keep talking about works is basically assigns a value between
Mm-hmm.
0 and 1 to the team, and so I can pick, and just that's what I take is
Yeah.
it's their odds of winning essentially, or that's what it's trying to estimate, and I compare that to the Vegas, the implied money line odds, and then compare that to the
Mm-hmm.
difference in EGOT ranking. And that usually ends up being, yeah, I think if you took all the games as a whole, those three things are proportional. But I haven't gone through the effort of like formulaically saying, this differential in
Yeah.
ego
Yeah.
ranking would be
Uh
roughly
huh.
equivalent to the, you know what I mean? But it's directional. It's directional. Like I know that less than 10% usually in difference in ego ranking usually ends up being like a minus 140 line or less. If it's 20%, you're usually looking at about minus 200 to minus 140, and then if it's a 20% plus, it's usually a pretty heavy dog. Um, so yeah, so conceptually yes, but I
Okay.
don't
So
have like
just
specific numbers on that.
based off of the ranking system, then let's take a look at the next two games for 100 Thieves. So 100 Thieves against CLG, who would you think is the favorite and who is the dog? And do you think it's a significant? Uh, do you think it's significant one way or the other?
100
Yep.
Thieves and CLG were the two. I would have 100 Thieves as a 58.5% favorite. I'm sorry,
Okay. So
58.1.
right now it's at minus 120, so that's like 55. So that's not a that's actually closer than I anticipated. So I guess CLG isn't significantly far away in your model, which is pretty interesting. I Okay, and then the next game would be 100 Thieves against Golden Guardians. All right,
5149 100
so
Thieves.
right now, Evil Geniuses is minus 130, or Golden Guardians is minus 135. So that would be a decent edge for you.
Yeah, and Ego is much higher. Egoat has 100 Thieves ahead by 20% in terms of the differential in their like LCS percentage. And so that I've another thing I've sort of looked at it, and in the model is better at the what's it called? It is similar to the ego, right? It's great on heavy when it heavy favorites and sort of minus 150 or better, but it struggles
Yeah,
with slight favorites. It's actually under 500. Um, and so in a situation like this, where I have sort of a strong signal from one indicator and a sort of not non-signal from the other, the stronger one has typically
yeah.
been more accurate. So I think that is a great spot for 100 Thieves. Slight the model prefers them and the ego rankings strongly prefer them.
I'm on the
Um,
other side. I'm on the other side in that
so
one.
yeah,
I think from a talent
yeah,
perspective and how the matchup would work out, I think in the top lane, if it's Haunter against Someday, I think Someday does have an advantage. Closer against Contracts, I think Closer has an advantage in the jungle. In the mid lane, Demonte against Ryoma, I think Demonte has a slight advantage. And then in the bot lane, it's FBI and Huhi against Cody Sun and Poom. I think that's probably even. So the fact that the mid jungle is on the side of Golden Guardians, I think that I would probably just prefer that side. And also, like stylistically, in terms of how often Golden Guardians goes into like split composition modes, I think that might actually help them as well. So it could be it might just be a highly volatile matchup because of those styles. Like if Contracts and 100 Thieves are able to establish an early gold lead, they'll be able to kind of destroy Golden Guardians. But I think if the game is a little bit slower paced, which Golden Guardians have kind of focused on doing when they play good competition, I think that it would go their way. And I guess it's kind of going to come down to how do they decide to approach a match against 100 Thieves. I think since 100 Thieves beat C9 and then lost both of their matches this week, they'll probably spend a lot of time looking at these games and trying to figure out what they did successfully against C9 and what caused them to slip up against the two teams from this week. So let's do the same thing with Evil Geniuses, because I'm super high on Evil Geniuses at this point. I think they're the second best team in North America. I think that one shortcoming of Ego would be the lookbacks for Hooney. I think those probably are weird because he was on a bad team last split. So I think the Hooney coming back, if they're drafting correctly, which we can't really trust Evil Geniuses to do in general, they had a lot of problems with Jizuke when they were drafting. But like Hooney with Svenskeren, Golden Glue, who's very good with Svenskeren. Golden Glue is not a great player in general, so the mid matchup will be important in a lot of their games. But then Bang and Zazel in the bot lane, I think Bang is still probably one of the three best AD carries in North America. So I'd be curious to what you think about these two matchups. So the next two matchups for Evil Geniuses.
yeah. And so just
Sure.
to add some context there, where the ego rankings actually, or I guess it's an ego. This is for the model, but it's this piece of it is similar. It's driven by a goal differential concept, and Hooney it ranks, it sort of clocks in pretty well. The weak spots for Evil Geniuses here are Golden Glue and Svenskeren, who and so I guess this is
Yeah.
especially for junglers. I think it's probably not a sort of like
Yeah.
individual stat
That's a
as
good
much as
point.
it's a team stat. But the opposing jungler against Evil Geniuses in this split has averaged 7% above that player's
Sure.
normal gold output. So I don't know if maybe it's like a like I don't know enough about their sort of play, so but like I guess if you're not defending objectives and you're just letting the other jungler get some early dragons and sort of clear jungles easily, you're not sort of
Yeah.
invading and you're playing like passively in the other team's jungle. Maybe that's allowing them to do that. But that's sort of the Achilles heel for them
Yeah.
in terms of these rankings right now. but the back to your point. So it was
Okay,
Evil
so first
Geniuses and
match
who?
is Evil Geniuses against Immortals. So that one should be an over 20%, right? Where they're just predicting heavy favorite Evil Geniuses. Actually, I guess not, right? Because I guess they're a lot
Uh,
closer in years.
yeah. So the egoat here actually prefers Immortals, but the model has Evil Geniuses as a 52% favorite over Immortals.
Okay, so in that scenario where your model is telling you that Immortals is a favorite, I think that it's wrong to predict them as a favorite, but I think it's right to it's correct if the reason they think it's very close or favored for Immortals is because of like stylistic reasons. So Immortals with Xmithy, I think, might actually be the kind of team that can slow down the game and punish Huni. Because Immortals is they're a smart team now with Xmithy on the team. Before they had garbage roster, complete utter failure of management and coaching and stuff. So it's like now they have Xmithy who can kind of try to outplay Svenskeren specifically. So in that matchup, I think that maybe they're onto something. I don't think that. So basically, it's like I think that the stat backed its way into that one. I don't think that the information that it was taking in can identify that kind of advantage. But the fact that it's identifying something is interesting to me. I just think it because like that's why I think Ego is
Yeah.
so good for us to look at is because I want it to point me in the direction of something I should be looking at deeper, not like take it as this is the truth and you have to kind of figure out why it's right, you know?
No, no, I'm with like it, and that's why I try to do these little sort of threads, and I think conversations are helpful because I think that like you need to know the context of
Yeah.
how like what's going into this in order to
Yeah.
appreciate like what the output means. And to your, I'm just trying to put these side by side. Yeah. So the difference in the ego here is definitely driven by that Xmithy
Mm-hmm.
Svenskeren difference. There's basically a 10% gap in between their
Yeah.
gold differentials here, whereas like the rest of these positions, Bang and Zazel definitely come in better than Apollo and Hakuho and the other matchups. Insanity doesn't do as well as here as I would expect, but is outperforming Golden Glue. And then up top, Cooney is ahead of Alorum by a pretty decent amount. Not quite as much as
Sure.
Xmithy leads Svenskeren. But so the differential in these two teams is being driven almost
Yeah.
entirely by that jungle matchup. And the Evil Geniuses has an advantage
Yeah.
or is basically even everywhere else. So I think it
Yeah.
lends exactly to what you said, that sort of if you tease out why it's saying these things, you
Yeah.
can
So
maybe
okay,
find
and
some
the
some
next
nuggets
one
there.
would be Evil Geniuses against Dignitas.
I hate Dignitas, or the model hates Dignitas, so I'm not going to be. I'm expecting this one to be not as actually. So 57% Evil Geniuses,
Okay, so the money
43%
line
Dignitas.
in that one is Evil Geniuses minus 345. Minus 345 is like 77%. So that's another one. So that'll
Yeah.
be interesting to kind of see how that plays out. Let's go to Europe. So whenever, actually, while you do that, I'm gonna go through my rankings real quick of how I have the teams. So right now, I think C9 is the best team in North America, even with their recent failures. Evil Geniuses, I think, is second. This is a lot of
Okay. Oh, just a question on C9. So I guess like I completely agree. I don't think that that anyone's sort of really in their league in North America at this point. Have the last 2 weeks sort of given you less hope of them having any chance of
so
making noise at
it
Worlds?
has negatively impacted their global power ranking for me. So Cloud9 went from, and
Yeah.
I've been pretty conservative to begin with. in terms of like, so I know
Yeah,
that
yeah.
for like ESPN, I forget how they shifted them. Actually, I could look at that real quick. ESPN had them go from uh, ESPN had them at 7th, 5th, 6th, 5th, and 12th. So they dropped 7 spots this week, which is pretty intense.
Yeah.
Um, I've had them roughly the same. So it feels like it's coming closer to where I have them. And that actually happened a lot this week in terms of where my rankings are and how they're staying pretty consistent, and ESPN's is flying all over the place. So C9, I had 10th, 11th, and 14th. So I will go over that real quick. So I think that a couple of the Chinese teams have jumped them in the rankings because their upside, I feel like the upside of these Chinese teams isn't that they're all going to make it to Worlds because they can't do that. But if you had Cloud9 and you sent them to China to play an entire split, how would they perform? And like stylistically, they would probably take some games or matches off of the teams above them or below them. But in terms of their consistency playing every team in that region, I think that they would probably end up below World Elite. So just getting back into North America, I'll finish that off real quick, and then we can go to Europe.
Yeah.
I have Cloud9, Evil Geniuses. I'm very optimistic. I think that Huni is a great player. I might be biased too much towards Huni. Golden Glue, I think, is not a significant downgrade from Jizuke, but it is a downgrade. The reason why I think overall for the team this is much better is because their playstyle is destined to be more Korean in terms of being a little bit more measured. So Huni obviously is a Korean player. He came from T1. He's played on T1 in the past, and they were very good. Svenskeren has always been a little bit slower, except for when he was on TSM. He was like really an aggressive jungler, but Svenskeren knows how to play this kind of style, where he's being a little bit more measured. Golden Glue is really the big change in terms of style. So Jizuke was more of a LeBlanc Echo player, and a Rise player. So he's going to look for split pushing opportunities. He's going to have a lot of 4-1s and stuff like that, where he's not necessarily connected with the rest of the team, and he's trying to create his advantage however he can. And then you have Golden Glue now, who is more of a control mage player. He plays more of like the Zoe. Zoe's really his best champion, so he needs to be grouped with his team, and I think that's really going to allow Bang to shine. So I think that Bang is going to have a great rest of season. Maybe not in terms of becoming the player with the most kills in the LCS, but I think it will unlock Bang's ability to carry late game team fights. So that's very important for Evil Geniuses. Team Liquid I have is the third best team in North America. I'm sure that most people would say that they're either first or second. Most people would say second. TSM has dropped a little bit. They didn't have a good weekend, but I'm more focused on talent. I think they are more talented than FlyQuest, but FlyQuest is pretty close in terms of being able to overtake them for the 4th spot. But I don't think that FlyQuest is going to be better than a lot of the teams I have them ranked under. So that if it's true where FlyQuest ends up getting above TSM, I'm not moving them up to TSM. I'm moving TSM down to FlyQuest, because that just means that there's no separation.
What do you think about
I love Power of Evil.
He's
one of my favorite. He's one of my favorite players.
Yeah.
His Orianna for the past several years, he's been one of the best Orianna players in the world. So this meta is perfect for him. So the fact that they have Wild Turtle and Don't Mash Me as their AD carries is really kind of hamstringing the team, which is pretty unfortunate.
Yeah, I forget who they played, not this past weekend, but the one prior, where they tried a dive at level 1 and he died and got like way behind, like missed like 2 waves and then just crushed from like 10 minutes on. It was just one of the most impressive performances I've seen on the LCS as someone who knows
good.
nothing, but like, it's like watching like if you don't know anything about basketball, you can still see a gamer like LeBron James just takes over, and you're like, oh yeah, that guy is like really, really good.
Yeah,
it was one of those
he's
games.
very good. He's one of my favorite players in the LCS. So I have FlyQuest, then Golden Guardians, then 100 Thieves, and there's like a break, a pretty big gap in North America from there. The reason why it happens is because I think that SK right now, from their recent performances, deserves to be higher than FlyQuest in the rankings right now. I don't think there's a significant difference between SK or FlyQuest. It's just that's how the regions are breaking out in terms of regional strength. I also have E-Star and OMG higher than FlyQuest. Like, if they played each other, I think that I'd have to favor the LPL teams because they've shown the ability to take games off of top teams in the past. But again, that's more about regional strength than like head-to-head matchup. So if FlyQuest went to China, I think
Sure.
that they would be in the E-Star OMG category. Then I have FlyQuest GG, Golden Guardians. Then I have 100 Thieves. Um, I I I know that 100 Thieves beat C9. Great. You did it in a best of one. I can't give you that much credit for it, you know? And then the last three teams, which I think are significantly, maybe not significantly worse than the rest of the league, but are the three worst teams in the league, are Immortal, CLG, and Dignitas. But we're actually going pretty long right now, so we're like already 30 minutes in. But I mean,
Yeah,
I feel like
we can speed this up.
we've had great information and stuff, so I don't really, I don't want to get this. I don't want to make a fast video to make a fast video. I just want to have like good content that people can really sink their teeth into. Maybe we should do two. Maybe we should do like our long form, and then once we talk about everything, we can go quick hit through each one. All right, we'll try that out. We'll see how that goes this week. We'll try that one out when this video is done. So let's go LEC. So no pressure. We don't have to move fast or anything. Let's just make sure we do this the right way, you know? All right.
Yeah. All right. So LEC, I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good is the wrong word. I feel like these have started to sort of line up with just sort of expectations a little bit. So G2 still holding on to the top spot despite this past weekend. Mad Lions second, Rogue third, Fnatic fourth, SK fifth, XL sixth, Misfits seventh, Vitality, Origin, Schalke in the base.
Okay, so I'll do mine real quick. I have Mad Lions as number one, and I think this has to do with like giving into how the public is looking at them right now. ESPN Esports has them as the second best team in the world. It's so funny.
High praise coming from
so
the geniuses over at ESPN.
So second best team is G2. If I was comparing North America to Europe, I would have Mad Lions first, C9 second, G2 third, Evil Geniuses fourth right now, and I think those are the four best teams in those two regions. So like even it's like I'm doing it for different reasons. Mad Lions, I think that I kind of have to give in. I think I've been underrating them so far, so I'm gonna give them a test at number one. Let's watch them fail. Then I have Cloud9. I'm still on them long-term talent, and like they're the best team in North America. G2 long-term talent. Evil Geniuses is more of like an aspirational ranking. I think that they have the ability to actually compete with C9 with their roster. So I don't think that their win over C9 was a fluke. In a best of 3 or a best of 5, I think Evil Geniuses is one of the only teams that can actually compete with them. Team Liquid stylistically, I think that they might just get run over by Cloud9, but we'll save that for the playoffs. Who knows? So I have Mad Lions, G2, then I have a gap, then I have Rogue. I think that I've also been kind of underrated on Rogue as well, because like at some point their consistency has to be a benefit, like how it is for JDG. So they're consistently winning these best of ones. Rogue is pretty good. I think talent wise they're not extremely talented. Like Mad Lions I think is a talented team. Rogue I think is playing well. Fnatic is returning to form. Long-term talent, cream rising to the crop kind of thing. So I would place Fnatic below Team Liquid but above TSM. Origin, I feel like I'm gonna get a nosebleed. I don't normally get nosebleeds. Origin and Misfits are underneath TSM. Then there's a gap. Then I have SK. So I had SK with XL and Vitality in like a lower clump. I think that SK is potentially moving up towards OG and Misfits, where I would maybe prefer them over Rogue Warriors. But their Rogue Warriors is really like the gatekeeper for the lower the gap between middle tier teams and lower tier teams. Because I think a player like Haro can kind of just take over. Then at the bottom I have XL, Vitality, then another gap, and Schalke. Schalke is the worst team by far. I hate to see it. I do like Schalke. I think that they started putting together in the middle of last split. I think their coach does a good job. Their coach is always looking for new ways to create a competitive edge. But right now they have like a 10 player roster. They just don't have any cohesion, and I think that they feel they need to continue with this 10 player roster thing for now, which I think is a huge mistake. So where are the big differences? We are pretty similar in the top 4. We're basically the exact same. You have Origin much lower, so we can talk about that. We're a little bit different on
Yeah.
SK and Misfits. So SK, Misfits, and OG. So let's look at the money lines. So XL. No, let's do SK. So SK against XL.
Okay. So I would have XL. So this one's it. So this is one of those. This is similar to the FPX OMG game last night. So the model has XL as a 60% favorite, but the ego rankings have SK significantly above XL.
Yep.
So I would like. To me,
Sure.
I'll probably treat that game as a coin toss because I just don't know.
Yeah.
Sort of
Money
based on
line
the
is SK
numbers.
150 minus 150.
Yeah. So I'd probably lean that way. But yeah, this one
Yeah,
feels
I
like
think it's
it's
basically
pretty
like
close to me.
the numbers telling us different things is basically just XL is a live dog. So then we'd
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
adjust from there. Next up,
Right.
Origin we're different on. So Origin against Vitality.
There. So yeah, Vitality is slightly ahead of Origin in the ego rankings, but I think to your point about Origin having higher upside in the model
Yeah.
with the longer look back, they are
Yep. I
70
think that's
plus
right.
percent
So
favorites.
I discussed this in one of my other videos that the Jack Troll signing might actually be a good thing because apparently he's like shot calling for the team already. So he gave a funny interview. He basically said like the reason why it's effective for me to be on this team and shot calling is because their previous support wasn't a good shot caller and my team didn't listen to my calls. So it's a good fit. Yeah, I mean it
Match
really
made in
is. Like
heaven.
I think that they did have Origin did have some problems shot calling. Probably I didn't go into every single game and look at it, but when you're Origin and you are a very strong long term team with a focus on their ability to play the macro game, I mean what other kinds of things can salvage your season than very good macro? Is that a ball don't lie shirt? Oh my
My man,
god,
Rushy
that was
Wallace
he was on the
got
Knicks when he did that, right?
yeah,
He was. I'm positive he was.
I
At
think he
that
was.
point,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
He's a Philly. He went to high school in Philly, so I've been
At
always
that
been a
point,
Rushy
like
Wallace fan.
his game was going top of the key to top of the key and just shooting like he'll do like little step backs and take threes. And then it was like I forget who they were playing, but I think they were in Madison Square Garden. They called some ticky tack foul, and the guy like instantly clanked a free throw, and he just screamed at the ref, "Ball don't lie," and he just instantly got tossed. It was amazing. That was one of the best things ever. That was so much fun to watch. That was when I actually watched the Knicks.
He's
Ugh. Yeah.
when the Knicks are
At
actually
least for
watchable, you
entertainment
know what I mean?
purposes. I mean, you have Rasheed Wallace. I mean, how can you not watch?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Uh, yeah. So
Exactly.
let's take a look
He's gonna
at
do
one
something.
Misfits game, and then we'll move along. So Misfits against Rogue. That's actually a very interesting one. So I would really like to hear what your model says about that because I feel different about this compared to what I expect I'm gonna hear.
Yeah. So I think to your point that the model has also sort of begrudgingly accepted the fact that Rogue might
Yeah.
be pretty good. They've just been, but I think also to your point, they've started to plateau a little bit, which I think might speak to some limited upside. So they came into the split, or I guess 10 games ago, I guess it's a full split, were the bottom ranked team in the EGOT rankings in the LEC. They've now risen to third, but over the last 3 weeks, they've sort of plateaued around this plus
Mm-hmm.
750 to plus 900 range. Whereas if you look at a team like Mad Lions, who's right above them, they've shown sort of a 2K ceiling. Fnatic, who's a slot below them, has shown a 4K ceiling. So that ceiling is a 15 to 20 game sample size. So it's showing a high level of performance over a long period of time, which Rogue hasn't necessarily demonstrated yet. Um, all that being said, the both the egoat and model pick them over Misfits. 58% on the model and a 27% gap in the ego rank, which is probably closer to like a 65-70%.
Yeah. So right
favor.
now, Rogue is minus 172, which puts him like 65-ish. So I mean, I feel bad about Misfits because I think that I'm right that they're better than what they've gotten results wise, and I mean they've thrown 2 games against Fnatic so hard. Like if they have both of those wins over Fnatic, the public perception would be right in line with where my perception is. So it's just pretty frustrating.
Yeah.
They've dropped some pretty close games. They've lost to good teams. They've given up a couple of bad losses, but I'm still on them long term. But I have adjusted them in my rankings a little bit. So let me just look at that real quick. I had Misfits going from... Actually, never mind. 26th, 24th, 27th. So I've been remarkably consistent. Good job, me. Let's go to the LCK.
All right.
I'll do mine first for this one. So
Okay.
T1 is fine. They're going to be fine. But I needed to drop them down. So now we have DRX, Damwon Gaming, T1, Gen G, then there's a gap. Then we have a Freak of Freaks. Then there's a gap. Then we have KT. I think that KT is proving to be better than Sandbox and Dynamics. I think that they will be a playoff team, and I think that they could compete with the Freak of Freaks. Sandbox Gaming, the Fighting Yamato Cannons, they're not good. All of their success will be tied to player talent, and all of their losses will be tied to Yamato Cannon, and I am not going to change my mind about that forever. So if you like my Yamato Cannon videos where I impersonate his voice, you're going to get a lot of those in the future because they're going to keep losing. So Sandbox and Dynamics. Then we have a gap. He's the new coach for Sandbox Gaming. So Yamato Cannon was an analyst and a coach in Europe, and then somehow got a head coaching job in Korea. He doesn't speak Korean. I don't know how he pulled this one off, but actually, maybe somebody bought Sandbox Gaming that was like European, and like wanted a European coach there. Like that might actually be it. I haven't looked at it at all, and that's a complete guess, but that would make a lot of sense. So
I feel like Kenzie might have tweeted about this. Like I feel like
definitely.
He just showing the guy in the suit. So things are starting.
They show him all the time. They show him all the time. They talk about Yamato Cannon all the time. So yeah. I guess you haven't heard any of my like impersonations of him and stuff. So it's basically like, hello, it's me, Yamato Cannon. I'm the coach for Sandbox Gaming. With Sandbox Gaming, very good team. We will be good in the future, but when I am the coach, we have no chance. So we suck. But I had a video like I did it for like 15 minutes straight the other day, because like I can think like myself and talk like Yamato Cannon. So it's pretty good. I want to.
You're fluent in Yamato Cannonese.
I want to like make a troll video making fun of like different like LCS and LEC personalities, and then just send it to Riot and see what they do. So because I mean they need to freshen up their broadcast. Their broadcast sucks. They need some Pykel in their life. So then
I don't know who the guy who does like the after show on the LCS broadcast sometimes that has like. That like I don't know what's going on with that guy, but like I don't know if it's supposed to be a parody or if that's real. Like, no, the guy with like the eye like camera thing, and he's got like all the gear, like the techno gear, and he does like the broadcast in his basement.
What?
He's Asian. Like he comes on after the LCS broadcast.
Is it like
sometimes.
some like sushi guy, like Sushi Dragon or something? That's
like
Sushi
Dragon.
Different.
Yeah,
that's like outside of League of Legends. I haven't watched any of that. That's real though. That's real life. That's not like a haha, we're being funny. That's like a, you guys want to watch this, right? Right? That's the LCS. You ever see that meme ever see that meme where it's like a dad walking into his son's room and his son's playing on the computer, and it's like the dad has a bowler hat on and is smoking a cigar, and he's like, "Hey son, you winning?" Like that is the LCS right now. They have like these people that have no idea what's going on running the show, and it's like so annoying to watch. It's just pretty bad. So between Dynamics
Yeah.
and Hanwha Life and Solhewan Prince, I think there is a gap there. I think Hanwha Life is the team that has the upside of pushing forward. If Cad and Dudu can kind of figure it out, and like they have an injection of young talent sometime later on in the split or next year, I think they have a chance. But they're probably doomed for this split. So what do you got?
Yeah, so fairly similar here. I think the top four are in a class by themselves. Right now, I have the order DWG first, Genji second, DRX
Yep.
third, and T1 fourth. They were hit especially hard by their last series. I have as the one difference here, this sort of like sole average team, I guess you could say, is I have
Mm-hmm.
KT, where you have Afrika. Um, then in a sort of below average tier, I have Sandbox, then Afrika, then Hand One Life, then Dynamics. Um, with that being said, I agree with your take there. Sort of coming back to this look back period, Sandbox has never risen above this sort of below average tier, whereas the ceiling for Afrika, Homolife, and Team Dynamics has sort of put them in
Yeah.
that average tier with KT. So I think with they start playing up to their ability, they could rise. Where I don't know if I think Sandbox is sort of at its ceiling right now, and then SP is just been the bottom team and falling further and further behind
Yeah.
everyone else for the
So let's
past couple
see if I
weeks.
can find an interesting match. So DRX against Genji, who do you have as the favorite? Probably probably
I
DRX.
have, I'm gonna guess this is a split, and that the model likes DRX and Ego prefers Gen G, which is correct. The model has DRX as a 59% favorite. Ego
Okay.
gives a
And then
slight edge
KT
to Gen
Rolster
G.
against Team Dynamics. It should like KT, right? Because it's in a separate tier.
I, it may like the Ego definitely prefers Dynamics or KT pretty significantly, and the model does too. So it's 60% KT, 40% Dynamics, 20% Edge and Ego, which is probably about the
Okay.
same
Interesting.
story.
Let's go to China. So let's get your rankings first.
Yeah. So now that we're
Yeah.
actually here, so JDG has risen above TES and taken the top spot by a small margin. TES is still second. Pretty significant gap between them and third, which is
Mm-hmm.
now Invictus Gaming. Um, Victory 5 just behind them. And this middle tier has gotten very bunched up and sort of weird to me. So with almost nothing separating these teams, I have Suning, then RNG, then LGD, then FPX, who seems way too low. Although
Yeah.
I've mentioned before that I'm biased to them. OMG just behind FPX, Vici just behind them, WE, who also seems too low, below Vici, and E Star, and then even EDG is when you with this many teams in it, you start to see
Yeah.
a little bit difference between the top and bottom. But I would put all these teams in sort of an average tier, and then
Yeah.
EDG is the last team in that.
Um. So do you have the rest of your teams? We'll get all of them.
Yeah, and then last couple, the bottom teams would be DMO, followed by BLG, followed by Rogue Warriors, and then a pretty big drop off to LNG in last.
Okay. So I'll do mine real quick. Just try to anything that kind of sparks your interest. Just make a note of it. Okay. So first, I have Top Esports.
Yeah,
I have Top Esports as the best team in the world still. Second, I have Invictus Gaming. I think Invictus Gaming is the third best team in the world right now. I think their win over V5 is very important to see because stylistically V5 is a team that scares me in terms of Invictus Gaming. I think that the like high octane, high variance play style of Invictus Gaming can fall victim to somebody like V5 who is more steady and is going to have like a similar kind of like they have similar priorities in the drafts. They have similar ways they want to play the game in most of their games. So it's interesting that V5 was able to beat Top Esports because I think that like in terms of variance, like IG is number one, Top Esports is number two, and then V5 is like the opposite end of the spectrum, and JDG is the other end of the spectrum as well. But I think that JDG is still better than V5. So I have JDG number 6 overall in the world rankings. I have them at number 3 in China. V5 I have it 4th in China and 7th in the world rankings. FPX I'm holding on. I have them at number 9 right now. I cannot get them down past like Mad Lions. Like I'm not gonna do that. If they played tomorrow, I would bet my house on FPX. Sunning at 10 overall in the world. They are what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th in the LPL. Yeah, so I'm huge on Sunning. I not called it, but I've been high on them all split. I said they were my sleeper team to compete for a championship, and they're putting themselves in a position to do that. LGD was another team that I thought everybody was kind of low on. Let me see if I actually have that original ranking. Actually, I think it was in a separate sheet. So I have Sunning, then LGD, then World Elite. So 9 in the world is FPX, then Sunning is 10, LGD is 11, World Elite is 12. I think those teams are very similar in terms of, like they're very similar in terms of where they deserve to be ranked because you see different pros and cons with each team. And it'll be interesting what meta is around to kind of separate these teams at the end of the split because it's going to be unfair that some of these teams are remembered as much better or much worse than the other when in reality they've all been pretty similar. Vici Gaming is number 17 in the world. I think Vici is a very, very interesting team to watch for next year. EDG is 18, another team that has a very young core, which is shocking to me. I know the names like Scout, Mako, like I've known those names, so I expected them to be much older than they were. So Vici Gaming and EDG are in a separate tier below World Elite and above RNG. So RNG is a team that I think is kind of like free falling. Like ESPN Esports had them as the number 4 team in the world in the first week of this, and now they're like in the middle of nowhere. I think that RNG is better than Rogue Warriors and Billy Gaming, so I have to keep them in a separate tier. I think if RNG played Fnatic, I would still take RNG because of their long-term talent is better than Fnatic's long-term talent, I think. But if Fnatic beat them, I wouldn't be shocked, and that's why I have them next to one another. So then the next clump, like I said, is Rogue Warriors and BLG. I think that Rogue Warriors is one of the teams that we were definitely right about. I just remember that one match where Haro, like last split, where Haro played Elise and had like a ridiculous game, and I was all over Haro that game. I had him as like a bunch of random one-offs and stuff. I felt very smart after that day. Billy Gaming, then we have a gap, we have E-Star and OMG, then we have a gap, we have LNG, then we have a gap, we have Dominus.
Where did you? I think I missed it. Where did you have
World Elite
WE
is
in there?
right under LGD, so that is significantly different from where you have it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I can think of reasons why there would be such a large difference between us and that one. Nothing pops to the top of my mind.
Okay, who? It is all Teacher Ma. The Bashang and Jumang are like 2 of the best players at their positions in these numbers, and
That makes a lot
Teacher
of
Ma
sense.
just bleeds.
So I think
Yeah.
I think part of the reason why is because Teacher Ma is the quintessential supportive mid laner. They put him on champions that are meant to help the jungler, and in the team fights, set up the AD carry to win. So I think that the numbers are always going to miss out on kind of what makes him a very good teammate and a positive contributor to the winning difference, as opposed to somebody compiling gold. So I feel like just gold isn't a great metric to use for somebody like Tetrama, but
yeah, and I think again, sort of similar to the the discussion earlier, these are in this model, they are individual statistics, or they're sort of keyed to a player, but they're really team statistics. It's sort of, what is the relationship between the two mid laners on these teams, for in terms of their contribution.
So let's take a look
team.
at one of next week's interesting matches that should be close. RNG against LGD. What do you got?
It's a good one.
This one's shocking to me. I can't believe the line.
So basically dead even in the EGOT numbers, but LGD is a 58% favorite.
Yeah, RNG is the favorite
model.
on Odds Portal, which is it aggregates a bunch of different sports books, I think. So yeah, they have him as minus 130 favorites, so that's 55ish. So it's flipped.
Yeah. LGD
I think honestly I think it's
respect.
mostly public perception. Ton of RNG fans. RNG fans are all over the place.
They're a little closer. I use Pinnacle most of the time, just because they have the match by match kill projections. But they have it. They do have LGD as a slight favorite right now. So it seems like there's probably if they're coming in if RNG's ahead in the consensus, it probably means there's a pretty wide spread on the line right now at different books.
Okay, so that's basically it for this video. We're going to spitball some ideas for a condensed version of this that is not going to require me to edit anything, and then we're going to record that. So stay tuned. Although on YouTube it's tough to stay tuned. I guess you have to watch a different video. Or actually, you could just go straight into the next video. I'm going to release them at the same time. So yeah, thanks for watching. Billy, you'll get your little shout out at the end of the next video. This one we're just going to chop right now. 57 minutes right now.